Hello everybody, welcome back to Read and Reread. I am Angelia. Today I'm going to do a double wide sort of Friday reads because I didn't do one last Friday. We were celebrating the final hurrah of our holiday season, but now I'm ready to wrap it up and talk about the first books I have finished in the new year and what's currently going on. It's been a really great week and start of the new year in reading. Not so much as a resident of the United States, as I'm sure you know, it's been a very troubling week. I've appreciated the comfort and solace of the reading community, but I understand that not everybody can escape the atrocities. They're right in the center of it. So yeah, it's a tough time. But I'm going to stick to the topic at hand, which is the weekly reading report. So in television viewing, we did watch the end of Stranger Things, and I'm really glad it finally finished. I mean, it was pretty bad, folks. I mean, if you haven't seen it, we were like, what? Oh, there's more. There's 2 more episodes. Oh, how long is it? It wasn't good. It wasn't good. That show was a lot of fun. I would say the first 3 seasons, and then things kind of went wonky. I think it's funny that there's a whole conspiracy that there's a secret other ending, because this ending was so bad that maybe that wasn't the real ending. I think it was. I think that was the ending. So if you loved it, you can disagree with me, but I thought it was pretty bad. Then we haven't started another show. We watched a couple of movies, which we are such lightweights about movies that when we watch them at home, it takes us 2 or 3 days sometimes to watch the movie, because we break it into pieces. We watch maybe an hour, but it keeps getting interrupted. We have to stop and let out the dog, and then it's time for him to go for his walk, and then we come back. And so the integrity of the movie experience and the continuity, we are never experiencing that when we watch a movie. We watched One Battle After Another, which was okay. It was the second half was good, I thought. I liked the second half. The first half, I kept waiting, thinking, what's the big deal? Why is this on everybody's list? This seems kind of, I mean, where is this going? I'm not that into it. I liked the second half when the time moved forward. I don't know. It also seemed like a lot of it, this is so many movies where there's just these long sections that just seem super self-indulgent on the director's part, like very protracted scenes where you can tell they just loved the look and feel of this thing, and it just goes on and on and on. So the whole end where there's all these people going up and down over bumps in the road. What? Okay, then we also watched Conclave, which we've been meaning to watch for a long time, and that was really good. I wouldn't think that a movie about a bunch of priests infighting about who should become the Pope would make a good story, suspenseful, beautiful cinematography. That one was actually really good. Watching it right after the other one, it just felt like, I even think it was a longer movie, but it felt tighter. And the suspense, that why do I care which fictional priest becomes the Pope? I'm not even Catholic, but I was all in on it. So that was a good one. Before we move on to the books, I also want to mention another highlight of my booktube week, which was the first episode of Women of Words, the new show that I am co-hosting with Pat from Book Chat with Pat and Debs from Rainer Reads, where we will be coming together once a month as 3 retired women, a journalist, a teacher, and a librarian, and talking about various literary, bookish, word-related topics. Our first episode was an introductory episode, just telling a little about ourselves and talking about our reading plans for 2026, chatting with the viewers. We had a great turnout. It was so much fun. And the next episode is going to be on the first Tuesday of every month. And so the next one I will be hosting. So if you're subscribed to all 3 of us, you'll never miss an episode. Okay, that's the end of my plug. And you can watch, if you missed it, you can watch the video of our first show on Deb's channel. I linked it as well in my post. We all did. So you can't miss it. I'll see you next time. Okay, the end of the promo until we get closer to the next one. I'm trying not to make this too long, but here we are several minutes in and I haven't said a word about what I'm reading. Here we go. Here we go. This is it for real. All right, the first book I finished in 2026 was The Correspondent by Virginia Evans. I received this book back in October as a birthday gift, and I've been eyeballing it ever since and really wanting to read it. Finally, the time came. Well, it's funny I say finally because I have books that I've been eyeballing for years on end, and their time still hasn't come, but this one did. This was really good. This was a great one to start the year. I finished it on New Year's Day, so I began it actually in 2025. And this was a book that built up on me as it went. It was like a stealth bomb, emotional stealth bomb. It's epistolary. It's about a woman named Sybil. She's in her 70s. She's retired. She's divorced. She had 3 children, but one died as a child. And we very slowly and eventually find out more about the circumstances of the son that she lost and what happened to her marriage. And she's writing to a number of people. She's writing to her brother, to her dear friend Rosalie, who was her sister-in-law when she was married. She's writing to a boy that is the son of a former colleague as he grows up. She writes to a number of authors. She's a practitioner of the dying art of handwritten letters. She writes them by hand and mails them in the mail. She will do emails if she must. And I love epistolary novels, but I know that they have to be really hard to write because trying to carry a plot and character development in the revelations that come in the interplay of letters and how to sequence them and put enough information but trust your readers to read in between the lines and carry different threads as we move from voice to voice, and all of that in a debut novel. So it was really quite remarkable. And she's a nimble writer, Virginia Evans. And so when I say it snuck up on me, I was enjoying it all along. I thought Sybil was a really compelling person. Of course, like all of us, she's a flawed person. There's things about her that were super aggravating, where she seems kind of crotchety and stuck in her ways. And then other little flashes where you start to see a different side of her that's really interesting. The way that she's perceived by other people, her difficulties with her grown daughter, all the different Sybil's that different people have experienced. And then sometimes some humor, like her kind of ongoing war with somebody else in the gardening club. The challenges of possible romance in later years. All of this I was enjoying very much. And then like the last third, all of a sudden, the emotional heft that it just started to build up as things got deeper. And I've seen this described as a hopeful novel, and I think that's true. It's not just the plot and where we leave with these characters. There's also something about personal agency and deciding what you are in control of to decide about what you're going to do with your time, what you're going to do with your heart and your communications with other people, and how are you going to tend to your relationships. I don't want to give too much away about the catalysts in this book and what Sybil chooses to do about different situations in her life, but I think this is really an author to watch. There's a blurb by Ann Patchett up here, and I wouldn't say this book reminds me of an Ann Patchett book, but it does in the sense of how you cannot see the machinations. Well, when you get to the end, you realize how carefully and intricately this was put together to create this character and make you deeply care and root for her. And even though she can be highly annoying at times, but other times she's just, your heart breaks with her. So I enjoyed this very much and I recommend it. And I also finished a really weird one, which was, I can't ever get the name of this book right. It's by Sequoia Nagamatsu, who wrote How High We Go in the Dark, which I absolutely love and have read twice. His earlier book of short stories, they are so bizarre. It's called Where we go when all we go, no, where we go when all we were is gone. What, his titles are strange. These are short stories. They're contemporary. They're not science fiction. I would say How High We Go in the Dark is speculative science fiction. And this one it's more like horror. It's the characters and the settings are contemporary, but the horror is rooted in Japanese mythology. And a lot of it is body horror. One or two of them are kind of funny, but most of them are pretty sad. There's like a sadness underneath, which is also what's underneath How High We Go in the Dark, because it's really about grief in a science fiction story. And there is grief and loss in here too. So some of his themes, you can already see them, but these are so weird. There's a story about a guy who his neck can extend, and his wife doesn't know it. And at night, he goes down through the toilet and through the sewers. His body is still in the house, but his head and his neck go through, and then he goes around the city and spies on people. It's his big secret because he's a peeping Tom. And then there's another story where a man's child has died, and he takes some of her hair and he goes down to these underwater caves, and he meets these creatures from Japanese folklore, and they shapeshift and give him a replacement daughter. These are really odd. If that description sounds good to you, then you might want to give them a try. I liked it. I didn't love it like I loved the other novel, but I did enjoy them, but woo, they're really odd. The next one that I finished is a real classic banger of a play, and it is Cat on a Hot Tin Roof by Tennessee Williams. This is the current selection for my Endless Drama project this month, and it's also the selection at my library in my banned book club this month, which we will be talking about next week. And it's on my list of rereads because I'm trying to do 30 rereads by October for my 60 Before 60 project. It's 30 science fiction books and 30 rereads. And I'm halfway through, but I need to pick up the pace. But anyway, this was a good one. And this, you know what, I'm on a little journey to reread my favorite Tennessee Williams plays. And I don't know if I need to decide which is my favorite play. I think I like Streetcar Named Desire even more than this one, but this one is so good. There's no shortage of dysfunctional family stories in which part of the topic is what is going to happen to the family fortune. Somebody is dying or has died, and there's a battle between the adult children. That is the topic of many a book, play, TV show, and nobody has done it better than Tennessee Williams in this book, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, where Big Daddy is dying of cancer, but they try to conceal this from him, and his grown sons, Brick and Gooper, and their wives, Maggie, the cat, and May, are at war about his property and his assets. That's the plot, but what it's really about is the dissolution of Brick after the death of his friend Skipper. What happened? There's so much going on, especially considering that it was written in 1955. And there's going to be a lot to talk about in that banned book club, because there is the play, and then there is the Hays Code for the movie that was made. I need to rewatch this movie, having freshly read the play, and see how much it is toned down. That's all I'm going to say, but it was excellent. I'm going to try to watch the movie pretty soon and compare. I've never seen a stage production of this. I'd like to see a stage production of this without portions edited or watered down in content. And there's also some really interesting author notes that Williams inserts at different parts of the play about how he expects different scenes to be staged, and what he actually comes in and interprets what's going on in the character's mind and how that should affect the staging, which I think is really interesting. Another book that I finished, and I finished it ahead of time, and it's a group discussion also, is Edenglassie by Melissa Lucashenko. This is an Australian novel. It's the current reading project of our Pinheiro group, which we're not reading Pinheiro right now, obviously. And we're just getting ready to do the discussion of the first half. So I'm not going to say too much about it or sum up my thoughts right now. But it is a two time period story. The past story is set in the mid 1800s in the area that later became Brisbane, and the tensions between the colonists and the indigenous people there. And there's a story about a young indigenous couple that come together and what is happening in the town and all of that. And then there's, in the present day, there is a 100-year-old woman named Eddie who takes a fall and is in the hospital and is kind of discovered there by a journalist who's also in the hospital, and also her granddaughter and a young doctor, and current day questions about indigenous identity. And so all of that, and then we kind of find out, well, how do the two pieces fit together? Eventually you find out. So that is what I read with the group that have not yet discussed, so I'm not going to discuss it here either. But it did satisfy a couple of my Storygraph challenges as well, so that was awesome. And I'll have more to say about this probably next time. So that brings us to what I am currently reading. I finished Cat on a Hot Tin Roof last night, so I'm probably going to start another novel today. And I'll show you what I have in mind in a second. But I'm also currently reading still these poems, You Are Here, Poetry in the Natural World. This is a reread of a collection I read, I guess, the year before last. It is edited and put together by Ada Limon, who asked a number of contemporary poets to contribute a poem that had some kind of theme about the natural world. And I'm just working my way. I read maybe 1 to 3 poems a day. I've gotten back into my daily poetry practice, and I'm enjoying that a lot. Not putting any kind of big pressure onto it, just reading them. Some of them I linger and read it several times and read it out loud. Some of them I might just read it once and it isn't really resonating that much, so I go on to the next one. I'm just reading a little poetry every day. I'm also reading with Alan from Big Hard Books and Classics, Muckle Flugga by Michael Pedersen, and I am loving this book. Again, we just started talking about it. We're both a ways into it now, and this book, I'm just going to make this one comment. So, well, let me just tell you, I'll tell you what it's about, and maybe one little comment. So I just cut out a bunch of stuff because after I said I'm only going to tell you one thing, I started talking on and on about the book. So it is about a lighthouse in Scotland run by a very angry, grief-stricken man called the father, his young adult son, Os, who is a talented textile artist. He's supposed to be training to be the next lighthouse keeper. He's very sensitive and he's kind of otherworldly. When I first started reading the book, I thought, here he is, the missing third friend of Leonard and Hungry Paul. That's how I feel about Os. And then a guy named Firth comes to stay for a short visit. Firth is a troubled writer who is at I don't want to tell too much. He's at a crossroads in life, but he decides to go and spend a short period of time on Muckle Flugga to fulfill a promise to his grandfather. That's the setup. I'm not going to tell you anything more about it right now because we just started discussing it, but I am loving the way it is written. I am absolutely loving these characters, and I will talk more about it in the future. So that brings me to what am I going to read next? I'm kind of in the last stretch of Muckle Flugga, and I finished Cat on the Hot Tin Roof. I have 2 novels that I need to read next. One of them is A Guardian and a Thief by Megha Majumdar. This is one of the January selections for my science fiction double feature project, and it is a dystopian novel set in Calcutta in the near future about a woman and her family that are going to escape. I guess there's terrible climate change ravaging India, and they're going to go to Michigan to join Ma's husband, but somebody steals their documents at the last minute. And so there's her story and then the story of Boomba, the guy who stole the documents. Why did he do that? What is at stake? And the whole thing takes place over a week. So that one I'm getting ready to start. And also The Imagined Life by Andrew Porter, which is going to be a buddy read with Shawn from Shawn Breeds Books, our first buddy read. And I have been looking forward to reading this for a little while as well, about a man who goes on a road trip and a quest to find out what happened with his father who left the family when he was 12 years old. Those are my next reads that you will hear some more about next week. What are you reading? What's coming up? How are you doing? I hope you are well, and I will talk to you soon. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.